Have you ever felt like you think too much? Like your mind is always searching for meaning in places others don't even notice? If so, you're not broken. You're what Carl Jung would have called a deep thinker, a person whose consciousness doesn't rest on the surface. In a world obsessed with speed and simplicity, depth is often treated like a flaw. People will call you overcomplicated, too sensitive, too intense. But Jung saw something different. He believed that the impulse to think deeply isn't a defect. It's a sign of a psyche reaching for wholeness. Because when you question, reflect, and analyze, you're not just making life harder for yourself. You're trying to uncover what lies beneath appearances. And that is both a gift and a burden. The mind that refuses simplicity. Most people are content with simple explanations. They take things at face value. They accept what they're told. But deep thinkers can't do that. They feel an almost instinctive pull to look behind the mask of things. If someone gives them an answer, they don't just absorb it, they dissect it. They ask, is this really true? What is this person hiding? What am I not seeing? Jung called this the tension between consciousness and the unconscious. Because beneath every thought you can name, there are forces you can't. Hidden complexes, archetypal patterns, collective myths. The deep thinker feels the presence of these hidden layers, even when they can't articulate them. And that's why so many of them struggle to feel at ease in ordinary life. They can't just go along. They can't stop questioning. They can't stop sensing the undercurrents moving beneath everyone's carefully constructed personas. The weight of awareness. Awareness has a price. When you see through appearances, you can't unsee them. You notice the hypocrisy in polite conversations. You sense the emptiness in shallow pleasures. You feel the fragility in people's certainties. This can create a sense of isolation, because while everyone else seems comfortable with the obvious, you're haunted by what's left unsaid. And yet Jung believed this discomfort is necessary. He wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Most people avoid this pain. They'd rather stay distracted. They'd rather blame someone else. They'd rather keep life small and predictable. But the deep thinker can't look away. They feel called, sometimes against their own wishes, to confront what others deny. Depth is both a gift and a curse. Let's be honest. Thinking deeply isn't always noble. It can become a trap. You can overanalyze to the point of paralysis. You can dissect your feelings until nothing feels authentic anymore. You can spend so much time reflecting that you forget how to simply live. Jung was clear about this danger. He warned that an unbalanced intellect can become just as dangerous as unexamined instincts. The mind can become a fortress, protecting you from experience instead of guiding you through it. This is why deep thinkers often struggle with depression and anxiety, because the same mind that sees meaning also sees uncertainty. It sees the futility in certain efforts. It sees the contradictions in human nature. It sees the impermanence of everything we love. And carrying all that awareness can feel overwhelming. But here's the paradox. That burden is also the path to authenticity. Because when you're willing to see clearly, even when it hurts, you build a relationship with reality that can't be shaken by trends or opinions. You learn to trust your own perceptions, however inconvenient they may be. And in a culture that celebrates conformity, that is an act of quiet revolution. The loneliness of those who see too much. Jung knew that deep thinkers often feel alone, not because they dislike people, but because they perceive layers most others ignore. When you spend your life looking beneath the surface, small talk starts to feel unbearable. You notice how often people distract themselves. You see how much energy they spend avoiding their own feelings. You sense the disconnection hiding behind their cheerful masks, and you can't help but wonder, am I the only one who sees this? This loneliness isn't imaginary. It's a natural consequence of awareness. When you're awake in a room of sleepwalkers, you feel like an outsider. But Jung believed this separation has a purpose. It forces you to rely on your own inner compass. It teaches you to value solitude. and it prepares you for the work of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. The pull toward meaning. Deep thinkers are driven by more than curiosity. They have a hunger for meaning that ordinary distractions can never satisfy. While others are content with routines, you feel called to ask, why am I here? What is all this for? What does it mean? These questions can be uncomfortable. They often don't have clear answers. They can make you feel ungrounded. But Jung insisted this search is what gives life depth. He believed the soul doesn't care about comfort. It cares about wholeness. And wholeness requires you to explore not only the light, but the darkness within yourself, the shadow in the deep mind. One of Jung's most important insights is that the deeper you think, the more you confront your shadow. The shadow isn't evil. It's everything you've rejected, denied, or disowned. It holds your fears, your insecurities, your hidden desires. Most people avoid their shadow at any cost. They stay busy. They blame others. They cling to ideals that make them feel superior. But if you are a deep thinker, you can't escape it. Your mind will keep circling back to the unresolved. It will insist on looking at the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. And this is where real transformation begins. Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." In other words, the purpose of your depth isn't to escape pain. It's to integrate it, to see it fully and learn from it. The risk of overthinking. Yet there is a danger here too. Deep thinkers can become trapped in analysis. Instead of feeling, they dissect their feelings. Instead of acting, they endlessly prepare. Instead of trusting, they second-guess every intuition. Jung warned that thinking, when overdeveloped, becomes a defense. It can be a wall you build to avoid vulnerability. Because if you can understand everything, you don't have to risk anything. But life doesn't reward those who only observe. It rewards those who dare to participate, even when the outcome is uncertain. Finding balance. So how do you reconcile this? How do you honor your depth without drowning in it? Jung believed the answer lies in balance. Thinking must be tempered with feeling. Reflection must be paired with action. Insight must eventually become embodiment. If you can learn to return to the present moment, to experience life instead of merely analyzing it, your mind becomes an ally, not a prison. And you discover that deep thinking isn't just a burden. It's a path to a richer, more meaningful existence. The gift of seeing patterns. One of the hidden strengths of deep thinkers is their ability to recognize patterns others miss. Where most people see isolated events, you see connections. A word here, a gesture there. Your mind weaves them into a tapestry of meaning. This isn't always comfortable. It means you notice contradictions in people's stories. You sense motives that aren't spoken aloud. You pick up on collective trends before they become obvious. Jung believed this sensitivity is part of what makes deep thinkers invaluable. Because while the crowd reacts to appearances, you are attuned to the undercurrents. You see how the past echoes in the present. You notice how collective anxieties take shape. You detect the invisible forces shaping culture and relationships. This capacity can make you feel isolated, but it is also what makes you wise, the burden of ambiguity. With this gift comes a burden. Deep thinkers are rarely satisfied with easy answers. You feel uneasy when things don't add up. You can't settle for superficial narratives. You keep asking questions even when everyone else has moved on. This constant questioning can create inner conflict. Part of you wants certainty, a clear, simple story to hold on to. But another part of you knows that reality is rarely that neat. Jung understood that the psyche is full of contradictions, light and dark, conscious and unconscious, order and chaos. He taught that maturity means holding these tensions without trying to force them into artificial harmony. It means learning to live in the space between knowing and not knowing. The challenge of communicating depth. One of the greatest frustrations for deep thinkers is trying to share what you see. You might try to explain your insights, only to be met with blank stares or polite nods. People may accuse you of overcomplicating simple things. They might think you're being negative or pessimistic, but you're not trying to make life harder. You're trying to understand it honestly. Jung would say that the difficulty isn't your fault. It's simply that most people haven't developed the same capacity for reflection. This doesn't make you superior, but it does mean you can't expect everyone to follow you into the depth. Sometimes your insights are meant to be integrated quietly, without needing validation. The temptation of cynicism. Another hazard of seeing too much is the temptation to become cynical. When you recognize the patterns of human folly, the hypocrisy, the denial, the endless distractions, it's easy to feel contempt. You might start to believe that everyone is shallow, that no one really wants to grow, that the world is hopelessly superficial. But Jung warned that this attitude is itself a defense. Cynicism is often just disappointment that is hardened into armor. It's easier to dismiss humanity than to stay open-hearted in the face of its contradictions. But if you let cynicism take over, you lose your connection to the very meaning you crave. Because beneath all the chaos and confusion, there's still something worth loving. A spark of authenticity waiting to be uncovered. The courage to stay open. Jung believed that true depth requires not just perception, but compassion. It means seeing the darkness without losing faith in the light. It means understanding human weakness without becoming cold. It means recognizing your own contradictions as well, not judging them, but learning from them. This is why deep thinkers at their best don't just analyze. They also heal. Because when you can hold your own complexity with acceptance, you create space for others to do the same. And that, Jung taught, is how collective transformation begins. One mind willing to look honestly at itself. The need for integration. Jung believed that thinking by itself is incomplete. No matter how refined your insights, they remain abstractions until you integrate them into your life. Deep thinkers often get stuck here. You can spend years exploring ideas, theories, and philosophies, but never risk embodying what you've learned. You might understand the patterns behind your behavior, yet still repeat them. You might see the origins of your fear, but still let it rule you. This gap between knowledge and transformation is where many intelligent people get lost. Jung called this the problem of living in your head, because the mind alone can't make you whole. Wholeness requires action. It means applying your insights in real relationships, testing your convictions through experience, allowing yourself to fail and to grow. This is why Jung placed so much emphasis on individuation, the process of becoming a unified self, not by thinking more, but by integrating thinking with feeling, intuition, and sensation. The role of embodiment. One of the most overlooked aspects of depth is embodiment. Many deep thinkers disconnect from their bodies. They live almost entirely in the realm of ideas, forgetting that life happens here and now. But Jung taught that wisdom isn't just intellectual, it's also visceral. It's in the way you breathe when you're under stress. It's in how you stand when you speak your truth. It's in your capacity to rest without guilt. Without embodiment, your insights become detached from reality. You start to believe that thinking alone will heal you. But healing is an experience, not just a concept. If you never come back to the body, you stay split. One part of you awake, the other still asleep. The importance of simplicity. In their search for meaning, deep thinkers can forget the value of simplicity. You might dismiss simple joys as trivial. A walk in nature, a meal shared with a friend, a moment of stillness. But Jung reminded us that these moments are essential. They ground you. They remind you that life isn't just about understanding, it's about living. Complexity can be beautiful, but without simplicity to balance it, you lose your center. When you return to ordinary experiences with awareness, you discover a depth that analysis alone can't provide. You realize that meaning doesn't have to be complicated. It can arise in the simplest, quietest moments. Facing the unknown. Another hallmark of deep thinkers is their relationship with the unknown. While most people avoid uncertainty, you feel drawn to it. You understand that truth often lives beyond what can be explained. But even here, there's a risk. You can become so comfortable with ambiguity that you avoid commitment. You might refuse to take a stand, telling yourself that everything is relative. Jung saw this as a form of escape, because while reality is complex, life still demands choices. Sometimes you have to act before you feel fully certain. Sometimes you must risk being wrong. This is where depth becomes courage, when you move forward without all the answers. The invitation to wholeness. If you recognize yourself in these descriptions, know that you're not alone. You are part of a lineage of thinkers, seekers, and visionaries who have always felt the tension between clarity and confusion. Jung's work offers a map, not just for understanding your mind, but for integrating it into a meaningful life. He believed that when deep thinkers learn to balance thought with embodiment, analysis with action, complexity with simplicity, they become some of the most powerful forces for healing in the world. Because you don't just see what others overlook, you remind them of what they've forgotten. The contribution of deep thinkers. Jung believed that every era needs people who are willing to think deeply. Because while society celebrates speed and surface, someone must hold the space for reflection. Someone must ask the hard questions. What are we really doing? What do we actually value? What price are we paying for convenience? Deep thinkers keep culture honest. They point out the gaps between our ideals and our behavior. They challenge collective illusions. They preserve the memory that life is more than consumption and distraction. Even if you never publish a book or lead a movement, your presence matters. When you stay true to your curiosity, you give others permission to do the same. The path isn't easy, but let's be honest, this path is not comfortable. It means living with questions you can't resolve. It means feeling misunderstood by people who prefer simpler stories. It means carrying the weight of awareness when ignorance would be easier. You will be tempted to numb your perception, to pretend you don't notice the contradictions, to join the crowd in forgetting. But if you do, something essential in you will wither. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And who you are isn't shallow. Your mind was made to probe, to question, to search. Your heart was made to feel deeply, even when it hurts." Cultivating self-compassion. While you hold this awareness, remember to hold yourself gently. Depth can feel heavy. Reflection can feel exhausting. If you don't balance your inquiry with compassion, you'll burn out. Jung taught that self-acceptance is the soil in which real growth takes root. This means forgiving yourself for not having all the answers, allowing yourself to rest, letting yourself be human, not just a thinker, because you are more than your thoughts. You are a living, feeling being with needs as valid as your ideas. The renewal of perspective. One of the gifts of deep thinking is the ability to renew your perspective. While most people stay locked in fixed beliefs, you have the capacity to change. You can admit when you were wrong. You can revise your worldview as you learn. This humility is rare, and it's what makes you trustworthy. People sense when you aren't clinging to ideology. They feel your openness. And in a culture of certainty and noise, that openness is medicine, your quiet impact. Never underestimate the quiet impact you have. Every time you share a thoughtful question, every time you model curiosity instead of judgment, every time you choose integrity over convenience, you are planting seeds. Some of those seeds will take root in ways you'll never see. This is how change happens. Not always through grand gestures, but through individuals who refuse to stop thinking, refuse to stop feeling, refuse to stop caring. The closing invitation. So here's your invitation. Stay awake, stay honest, stay open. Honor your depth. Don't apologize for it. And when it feels overwhelming, remember that you're not alone. You are part of a long tradition of seekers who have always carried the burden and the blessing of seeing beneath the surface. If this message resonates with you, share it with someone else who might be quietly carrying the same questions. Because together, we remind the world that reflection still matters, that thoughtfulness is still valuable, and that in a time of mass distraction, choosing depth is the most radical act of all.